leading marine ecologist at the University of Southern California, Dave Hutchins.
Red tide is a common name for a group of single-celled algae that live in coastal water and produce toxins. They produce large blooms that can be really damaging. Some of the organisms that make these blooms actually have a reddish coloration, and when there's enough of them, they can make the water turn literally red, like blood.
In fact, the book of Revelation is written on a small island in the Aegean Sea. It's highly probable that red tides are well known to the local fishermen and to the wider population that reads the prophecies. Given that the sign calls for our waters to turn into blood, it might very well be linked to the phenomenon of red tides. But it will have to be a red tide so unnaturally catastrophic, so extreme, that it can only be seen by many as a sign from God. Can a red tide become that deadly? Again, science offers us a surprising answer.
The red tide algae produce very potent toxins that can kill humans and other vertebrates. And they can literally do the same types of damage that a nerve gas would do.
The big culprits are shellfish, filter-feeding shellfish, clams of any variety, and mussels. These are organisms that basically sit there and they pump water through a very, very fine mesh, and they collect algae in their stomachs. Most of the poisonings that come from algal toxins have the name shellfish poisoning in them. So there's amnesic shellfish poisoning, which causes loss of short-term memory. There's paralytic shellfish poisoning, which causes paralysis. There is neurologic shellfish poisoning, which has respiratory effects. A lot of these things get into our food web by virtue of the fact that we eat some organisms from the ocean that are filter feeders.
A red tide could escalate, and the threat could spread from the food we eat to the air we breathe.
Some types of red tide release the toxins to the water, and they can actually get aerosolized out of the water and into the air where people can breathe them.
That would be like our oceans emitting clouds of lethal nerve gas. The impact on people living near the sea would be devastating. If a gigantic red tide strikes all the oceans at once, a vast majority of sea life on Earth will die, as will the people that eat and breathe the toxins the red tides produce. The millions of other people around the world who depend on the seas for food will starve. The human suffering and death will be mind-boggling. There's no doubt that many would see this as a fulfillment of the 7 signs. Both pollution and global warming are, in fact, upsetting the ecological balance that normally checks red algae growth, fueling a rise in the number and severity of red tides worldwide. If this deadly toxin continues to thrive, it could overwhelm the planet.
If toxic algae win and continue to win and always win, we have a very dire situation.
Those attuned to the prophecy of the 7 signs agree, but for different reasons.
I think what God is specifically saying, he's saying to the rebellious planet Earth, to the Antichrist and his forces, you've martyred my people, you've spilled their blood, you've killed millions of people that believe in God by taking their blood. Now, as a judgment and a final warning to you, I'm going to turn all the rivers on planet Earth and all the oceans into blood.
So this sign really could be a terrifying portent of worldwide killer red tides. It also has a link to our next sign, where again, destruction comes from something that's a direct source of life on Earth. Monstrous earthquakes, devastating plague, dying oceans colored red. All are foretold in Revelation, and all have been witnessed on Earth. These calamities have yet to bring about the end of the world, but are they signposts, warnings that far worse is to come? Evidence seems to be mounting that another sign is unfolding. 1997. The Canadian Arctic. 100 miles from the nearest city, a field researcher begins to notice something alarming.
The changes that I saw unfolding in the Arctic were much too large, much too persistent to be explained away as just natural variations in climate. There was something else at work there. This is real, and it's now.
Giant ice sheets the size of Rhode Island cleave off Antarctica. Hurricanes rage with unimaginable intensity in the Atlantic. Cyclones bring death to hundreds of thousands in Asia. Droughts decimate gigantic regions of the world, and species are driven to extinction at rates never seen before. Could all these calamities be connected to one sign? Revelation tells us the 7 seals bring forth 7 trumpets, and the blaring of the 7th trumpet summons 7 bowls.
And with the 4th bowl, an angel poured his vial upon the sun, and men were scorched with great heat.
Heat, the sun scorching mankind. One of the most alarming signs of the prophecy. And for the scientific community, climate change is unfolding with undeniable evidence.
The Earth is getting hotter. It's warming up. There are just certain physical principles that are inviolate. The physics behind global climate change are very solid. We increase the concentrations of atmospheric greenhouse gases, the planet warms. You cannot escape the physics.
For Mark Sarazi, a research scientist at the National Snow and Ice Data Center, the cause for climate change is obvious and man-made.
It became very clear that we were starting to see the effects of global warming associated with rising greenhouse gases.
Everything that we're doing in our activities, whether it's building new cities, putting up agricultural lands, whether it's driving vehicles and putting gases into the atmosphere that we know help warm the planet further, we are causing this planet to warm. It's happening much faster than our models were telling us is going to happen. And that's scary.
But for some religious experts, the evidence of climate change is linked to a larger prophecy, another sign of the impending apocalypse.
Men will die from heat, sun radiation and poisoning, crops, water will dry up. There will be such an intensification of the sun's rays that 50% of the Earth's population will die.
We're seeing natural disasters unprecedented. When you see on the evening news somebody sitting in the upstairs of their home because the downstairs is flooded out, I mean, it's frightening.
Whether or not they agree on the cause, most scientists and religious experts do agree on one thing. Our planet is heating up, and the effects are catastrophic.
It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And then it's a matter of how severe is it going to be and what are the impacts going to be.
Increasing the Earth's temperature, even by a few degrees, can cause devastating consequences worldwide.
The change is going on very, very quickly. We're going to see a rise in sea level. We are going to see very likely more intense hurricanes. We're going to see increasing drought. You're going to see strife. You're going to see conflict. Increased terrorism as a result of global warming, it's in there in the possibilities.
A rise in temperatures would set off a chain reaction.
What we're going to be seeing is that rate of sea level rise is going to accelerate. Why is it going to accelerate? Largely because we're going to see increasing meltdown of the Earth's glaciers and ice caps.
What's going to raise the sea levels is primarily Greenland and Antarctica. Together, they're more